Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black T News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black T News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Donald Trump and the fine that he's supposed to pay, like over almost a $500 million. Well, almost more than almost half of a billion. It was like 570 something million, I think. I mean, 100 billion dollars for his case with Letitia um James and the New York court and stuff with his fraud case with his properties. And so it got lowered down to over 100 million. So he went ahead and paid that, and they did it like hours before the deadline. But I want to talk about this segment with Frank Lutz. He was on CNN talking about the Democrats and basically how they are victimizing Trump and legitimizing Trump to the point where they're going to see Trump's strength just increase in the polls. And we've seen that happen. And I think that's going to carry over. Like last year, I was concerned about these cases, concerned about the stuff, concerned if he could win, concerned about if people could change their minds, because people don't want to change their minds. But I'm seeing so much commentary from different folks that have this attitude of, I really don't want to vote for him, but they feel like they are really being pushed to the point where they have to. And it's not just about these court cases and stuff, because some people can be like it's unfair but still not like the guy and not care. But also how things are being handled on the border, or how things are being handled over in the Middle East. So I'll show you guys a couple examples with some tweets and stuff. Uh, so it's just really fascinating. The Democrats really are their own worst enemy, and they're getting in their own way, and they're probably going to secure a Trump victory. We'll see what happens, but the polls are looking good for him, and I don't think that's going to really change. I don't, because what more negative things could come out more than negative things that have happened? It's all on Joe Biden. So you have, when it was Trump v. Biden in 2020, people were coming out to vote against Trump. Now it's the reverse. Now it's the reverse. And at least people know what they're going to get with Trump. Like, yeah, they didn't like some stuff about him, but at least, the world wasn't quite on fire, and maybe they had a little more money in their pocket and gas was cheaper, etc. And there was, maybe they thought he was a buffoon, but there was at least some level of competency there. Biden being like just a walking corpse with everything being wrong. People are more likely to vote for Trump than against Biden. So again, I'll show you guys some examples. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself with this topic. Also want to show the snippet of The Breakfast Club with Cadance Owens, because my sister sent it to me before the show, but I didn't get a chance to watch till after the show. And some of this snippet in it, I'm like, these things are not accurate. So I wanted to address some stuff that she said. Also wanted to talk about Ronna McDaniel going over to I believe it's MSNBC. She got hired by NBC and stuff after she stepped down from the RNC, which some people on the right were like, oh my gosh, she's going over there and showing her true colors. And, so people on the right were really upset about it, but people at NBC are very upset about it. They're already like trashing the hiring decisions. They want, I guess, them to reverse it, because why would you just be like negatively and openly on the air trashing the new hire? It's just, besides creating just a hostile work environment, which I'm sure Ronna is used to anyway. It's got to annoy your bosses, so they're feeling like they can do that as a talent. But very, very fascinating. I also wanted to show you guys this clip. I was scrolling through Twitter of my retweets. And I'm like, I didn't kind of fit this in the time because I forgot about it, but I have to show you guys this video because it's so funny. It's so funny. My mom were dying watching this. With a Kennedy talking to an climate expert. It's John Kennedy. I gotta show you. We'll start off with that. It's worth your time. It's gonna be a long segment. It's like 6 minutes long, but it's worth your time. I promise you. But before I show you guys any of that, please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate because it does cost to stream and run my website, all the stuff so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch that's available in the store, like different mugs and T-shirts, and so on. So you guys can check out that. I do have a link to an Amazon like list thing if you guys are interested in any of my books. So you guys can check those out there. They're in the description. I have 17 that are published all together. Looking forward to this year getting some more out as well. So just make sure that you are, if you go to on my site on blacktnews.com, on the merchandise page, there is a banner that'll take you to my book website. Since I'm talking about it, let me just pull up what it is called. It's my book website is ninjadustpublishing.com. That's my book website where you guys can learn more and sign up for emails or whatnot. Because again, I plan to release some more stuff this year too. So anyway, if you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. Thank you to those of you who are watching live and those of you who are watching it back later. I hope I sound okay in the audio department. Just let me know if there's any issues in the comments and stuff. But let's start off with this Kennedy video, and then we will get into the Trump stuff. I promise we will get into the Trump stuff. But I like to start off with something humorous, and boy, oh boy, was this funny. This was funny. So here is John Kennedy talking about he was questioning a Democrat witness about climate change. So this is their expert.
What is carbon dioxide?
I went to high school, but that's carbon dioxide is a gas.
Okay.
I'm not a professional to talk about carbon dioxide so much, but
Well, you want us to abolish it, right?
no, there's always going to be carbon dioxide.
Right. So what is it you want us to do? Let me back up because I want to. I mean, you're here as an expert. Tell me more about what carbon dioxide is.
I'm here as an expert cross-country skier who sees the changes in my winters and the landscape that I live in Alaska. And so carbon dioxide is what I see it as is, it's a gas that exists in our atmosphere. And
What, is it the major part of our atmosphere?
It's a huge part of our atmosphere, yes.
It's actually a very small part of our atmosphere.
Well, okay. But, yeah, I don't know. What are you asking specifically?
Well, you said we need to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. I'd like to know first if you know what it is. You want us to abolish fossil fuels?
I never said that.
You never have said that?
No.
Okay. What do you think we ought to do with fossil fuels?
What will we do with fossil fuels?
Yeah. Should we make any changes?
I would like to see a decrease in the use of fossil fuels. I think there's a possibility to use more electric generation.
Okay. Over what period of time? 10 years, 50 years, 100 years?
That's not, I would like to see it come as fast as possible while continuing.
How fast?
Sorry?
How fast?
I don't have a
You don't know
for that. No.
Okay. You just think, well, how much will it cost for us to become carbon neutral in the United States by 2050?
I'm not a professional on that. I don't have an answer.
You don't have any idea?
No.
You just think we ought to spend the money?
I'm not an economist.
Yeah, but it's going to cost money. You realize that?
Yeah, but we've also talked about the trade-off of what the cost of climate change as emergencies will cost in the future also. So
right, but it's going to cost trillions of dollars to become carbon neutral by 2050, right?
I do not know.
You don't know. You just think we ought to do it?
I don't have a great answer for you, but I think
Okay.
I would. Like
If
to
we
see zero
spent,
carbon.
if we spent those trillions of dollars and became carbon neutral by 2050 in the United States, which you advocate, how much will it reduce world temperatures?
I don't have an answer for that.
You don't know?
No,
You just think we ought to spend the money and then see what happens?
I think as an athlete, I think if we spend that money and invest in our future, hopefully those temperatures stop rising and maybe the snow at least stabilizes where it is for me. But yeah, I don't think anyone knows for sure. I don't know anyway.
Well, when my colleagues invite witnesses to come to us to tell us, advise us on passing legislation, I always check out the background of our witnesses because I like to know who I'm talking to. I checked yours out, Mr. Schumacher, and I want to be sure I understand it as I evaluate your testimony. On June 8th, 2020, you tweeted, I'm going to quote, "The war on drugs was intentionally created to incarcerate Black people en masse," end quote. The war on drugs, you said, was intentionally created to incarcerate Black people en masse. Who intentionally created the war on drugs to put Black people in jail? Who were you talking
I
about?
don't remember typing that.
You don't?
No,
It's on your Twitter feed.
maybe a retweet. I don't know. I haven't used that in a while.
Well,
Also, it
even if
doesn't
it's a
seem like
retweet, it shows your support, right?
maybe, yeah. But it's not the topic of this conversation. I think.
Right, right. But it has to do with, you're here giving us advice, and I just kind of like to know a little bit more about your.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here as an athlete giving you my story and what I've
Okay.
seen in my
On
field.
August 27th of 2020, you tweeted this, quote, I'm going to quote, "Police are paid with taxpayer dollars. If they are not answerable to us, we can demand new service, and that's what this is. Abolish the police in favor of that new service," end quote. You think we ought to abolish the police, do you?
Again, not the topic I'm here to talk about today.
I know, but you tweeted it. Do you think we ought to abolish the police?
That's not what I'm here to talk about.
Should we do that before or after we get rid of fossil fuels?
I'm not going to address that. That's,
Yeah, you don't want to address it. Okay.
So, that was the moment when me and my mom just like my mom's facial expressions while all she was listening to all this was just hilarious anyway. But we got to that point. I love how he threaded that back there because to be fair, it doesn't have anything to do like his Twitter feed at that point doesn't have anything to do with he's supposed to talk about, but he's clearly not an expert on the thing that they told him he's supposed to come talk about anyway. So but that was that was like chef's kiss. But yeah, clearly just a young activist kid there, talking about climate change, but doesn't really know much about anything, wants us to implement policies, but doesn't understand what kind of repercussions there will be for the country, particularly in economics, etc. This is like the people who just yell do something, and it's like, do you know any like real stats or information about anything that you're talking about? Sometimes you'll see people upset about these very old politicians talking about TikTok and other apps and stuff that we use, and and they're just like, you have these people who are very old talking about these technologies and they're very out of their depth, like Nancy Pelosi doing the tic-tac-toe, and people are like, bro, what are you doing? Like that has serious Pokemon go to the polls kind of vibes, and they just look at them as fossils who shouldn't be deciding the future of America. And on the flip side here, you see someone who is very young and very out of their depth, who God bless him for being a bit active, but having passionate feelings and no knowledge is a pretty dangerous combination. So he's here being used, probably. I'm not familiar with the athlete. Maybe he's a pretty decent athlete, nice looking young man, pretty sure I guess they think that'll get him pretty far. But these essentially, he's really not an expert on this topic. He's a bit of an influencer. And that's what the Democrats do. They drag influencers to the White House or wherever, they brief them, State of the Union, whatever. And then they send them on their merry way to dish out particular talking points that they just like to put out there, you know? Weather changes all the time, and people talk about how warm it is, cold it is, but I don't know, it's just like same old going through the motions for me. But he is an athlete, so what do I know?
Let me ask you about one more of your tweets. On August 26, 2020, you tweeted, there's a picture. I'm not going to describe the picture, but you said, quote, your words, not mine. It's on your Twitter feed. Quote, this is what systemic racism looks like. The Los Angeles Police Department is literally policing only the Black Lives Matter side. End quote.
The heavy sigh.
What do you mean by that?
This is still off topic.
No, it's not. You're here as an expert telling us, advising us, and I'm asking you about your background.
I'm here as an athlete to talk about the effects of climate change on my sport.
Okay, let's go back. Well, I'm almost out of time.
Senator, you're well out of time, and we have other senators waiting, so please
Okay.
wrap up when you have a moment.
All right. Thank you all for your testimony.
So, again, he's a young man. So I don't know how long he's been involved in his sport, but I don't know how many years he could have racked up just observing the environmental changes, to really truly be an expert on the dynamic of the climate, and the effect of carbon dioxide, since he knows nothing about it. So that was funny, very cringy. Here's some comments. Anecdotes are not science. True. It's giving totally Kyle. Absolutely. They use the term expert loosely. Yes, they do. Absolutely, they do. So, I got a good laugh out of it, especially I wish I could share my mother with you guys, so you could kind of know what her facial expressions and stuff were in her comments, but it was funny. Anyway, let's move on to Trump. So, Trump fortunately got to pay only, I think, $175 million, if I'm not mistaken, as opposed to paying upwards of more than $500 million, as he tries to appeal the ruling with how much he has to pay in the New York fraud case. And I guess, it was looking like he wasn't going to be able to pay it before. So people are like, oh, broke Don. People are mocking him. I think Jimmy Kimmel made a joke about it. Joe Biden said something about it. And it's funny when you ask him any other comments about legal stuff, they're just like, oh, we don't comment on ongoing things, but, even like things that are kind of obvious, but, Trump is being railroaded by New York. It's like, yo, he's broke. Very funny, right? So there's a conversation on CNN from Frank Luntz, and Frank is he's a I don't know if pollster is the right kind. He looks at polling, but he looks at the behavior of voters, and he does questionnaires from voters when they watch different debates, and kind of tracks what they think. And so he's been in the business for a while, and he's had some very negative things to say about Trump including after the 2020 election, kind of, well, not kind of, he uh, said that basically Georgia was lost because of Trump, because he was upset about the 2020 election. Like he said, he could make um, a strong case that we lost those Senate seats because of him, and then he pretty much threw them on purpose. And so I'd have to find that thread to go through it, but just like some background, he's laid some pretty clear frustrations about Trump, and probably has, I would assume, probably a negative overall opinion of him based on some of his commentary regarding him. But when they were talking about Trump and this particular situation, this particular case, he let CNN know that Democrats are about to lose the entire election. So this is a segment that was pretty viral over the weekend that is well worth watching. And I share this sentiment. He just kind of wraps it up so perfectly.
The politics of this. Folks in the Biden campaign are already starting to refer to Donald Trump as broke Don, which is interesting. And then there is the possibility that the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, would have to start or would start seizing assets, maybe even buildings. How do you think that would play?
I want you to remember this moment, and don't forget it. If the New York Attorney General starts to take his homes away, starts to seize his assets, it's all going to be on camera. Pundits are going to sit there and scream about this. This man cannot be elected. You're going to create the greatest victimhood of 2024, and you're going to elect Donald Trump. If they take his stuff, he's going to say that this is proof that the federal government and the establishment and the swamp in Washington and all the politicians across the country and the attorneys generals and all of this, that this is a conspiracy to deny him the presidency. He's going to go up in the polls just like he went up every single time they indicted him. The indictment, let's not talk about whether it's justified or not, but it will prove the things that he's saying on the campaign trail, and he will go up, and it may just elect him president. Do not forget that. And I say this to the Attorney General right now. If you play politics on this, this is what the secretaries of state did in Colorado and what they did in, I believe it was Maine. His numbers went up in both states. I don't understand. I'm almost speechless in how pathetic the opposition to Trump has been and how completely misguided. And this is a perfect example of it.
What do you think about that?
I mean, my biggest question, this is the beauty of Frank having his job, which I don't have, is that happened, what you're talking about, Maine, Colorado, when you're talking about what happened in a primary. And while I don't disagree that the optics, I've spoken to people inside Trump world who are saying, instead of bankruptcy, we sit in the peace. Come to Trump Tower, please. We'll have cameras there. We'll have that fight. We'll win that optics battle. I think the bigger question is, in a general election, and given the fact that the Biden campaign has really latched on to this in a way that they haven't in most legal issues.
Broke Don. I've been surprised to hear that.
He was joking about it last night at a fundraiser as well that was off camera, whether or not that rise in the polls can carry into a general election. And you'd know better than, I mean, you're talking to people, you'd know better.
How is Donald Trump beating Joe Biden when he's got 85 indictments that still exist? Felonies. How is he beating Joe Biden with the economy getting better and things cleaning up? Okay, you got, it's still have inflation, you still have got immigration. Trump is leading, and in the 7 swing states, Trump is up by the margin of error in 5 out of 7. Why is that happening? Because his critics are stupid, and they're running a horrible campaign. And for those people who do not want Donald Trump back, they should be thankful that the people who are orchestrating his loss are as pathetic, and they don't understand the American people.
Quick last word.
So Frank there went off, and he's correct. He's absolutely correct. He's absolutely correct. There was definitely frustrations with people within the Republican Party. You still see that or saw that throughout the election process, even though he was dominating it. But last year, there was a chance that someone like maybe a Ron DeSantis could have beaten him, especially if it was a 1v1. But no, I guess nobody's going to let that happen anyway. But Ron's numbers were going up and Trump's was, kind of down or whatever. But there could have been movement for Iran in a positive direction. But as soon as those indictments start happening, Trump just steadily was on the rise, and then other people went on the decline, etc. And there are mistakes or whatever made on DeSantis' camp and other people's camp or whatever. But really, so many people felt like, how can I not support Trump when they're going after him? Because if I don't support him while they're going after him, it makes it seem like they're winning. It makes it seem, because they want to drive me away from him. So I have to not be driven away from him. Now, some people are like, bro, that's exactly what they want. They want you to be like attached to him, and then they're going to use all this stuff in the general election and you're not going to win. And I think that was the general kind of right thinking. However, Biden being so absolutely awful is the biggest factor here, and Trump just dominating. Because people being for Trump or want to stand for Trump, that's only going to get you so many votes and so many support. Because some people on the right were still like, okay, if you guys want to pick Trump, you can go down with that shit. Maybe we'll destroy MAGA in the process, and perhaps that'll be worth it. Take a couple losses, rebuild things after, Biden is out of office, etc. Folks had this mentality. They were like, break the Trump cult, so on. They're willing to take the L. But Biden and the Democrats are so bad, particularly with the border and also in the conflict in the Middle East, that people are saying that they're going to support Trump. I saw so many people that are holding on like, no, I'm still not going to support him. I don't care. I'm not supporting him. And I'm seeing minds flip. And not just because they don't like what's being done to him. It's because of Biden. So they're trying to take things like the bloodbath thing that happened last week. And if you don't know, Trump was at a rally and said that there was going to be a bloodbath if he doesn't win. And he's clearly talking about economic outcomes with the auto industry. And they're like, oh my gosh, Trump said there's going to be a bloodbath if he loses the election. It's going to be another January 6th. That's what he wants, which is so crazy because I don't think Trump wanted a January 6th in the first place. And it just got out of hand and was quite a riot. But Biden cut a commercial and mixed it in with like Charlottesville stuff with neo-Nazis and clipped up stuff with like fine people on both sides, but didn't include the section when he said, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis. I totally condemn them, to make some kind of fear porn for the American people, to try to drive them into saying, oh my gosh, we have to remember that Trump is still the worst thing ever and I can't support him. And there are still people who feel that way. Like Stephen A. Smith can recognize that the Democrats and the media blatantly lied about that bloodbath comment, but he's in his mind, he's still like, Trump can cause a civil war. Trump is worse. I went through all that last week, and I still think that that's the wrong sort of thinking. And I think Joe Biden is so bad on so many different things that I definitely think that he's the worst option. But we're not alone in that. We're not alone in that. So I was reading through this thread with A.G. Hamilton. I have no idea who this person is in real life. They are a Michigander, though. But so they said, got a text from a friend, Biden is going to single-handedly save the re-election campaign for both Trump and Netanyahu. By the way, AG was like, I haven't seen AG say that he was going to vote for Trump, but AG was firmly in the DeSantis camp. Every time Trump would say, I think, attack DeSantis, he would give money to the DeSantis team and just posted a lot of, negative. Well, AG's thing, I started following because he debunks a lot of media stuff, but he would debunk a lot of Trump stuff too, and as well. So this tweet here, is interesting. And then someone in the comments said, I feel like I'm being forced at gunpoint to vote for Trump. But if the alternative is 4 more years of this. And he said, I can't tell you how many otherwise anti-Trump people I've heard this from in recent weeks/months. The Biden team are doing it to themselves and don't understand the consequences. And someone else said, as someone who has voted D since becoming a naturalized citizen a decade plus ago, 100% this. And if you go beyond just the Israel policy, this is basically an overwhelming majority of my immigrant friends thinking right now. Can't imagine another 4 years of these policies. Let me so was that I've literally never once voted for Republican in my life, and now I'm prepared to vote for Trump in November. It's unreal. And so I mean there's other people in the comments who are up against him and stuff, but yeah, it's interesting. And I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen comments like that on TikTok, you know, everywhere. I think it's interesting that Ben Shapiro hosted a fundraiser for Trump. Now he was already been saying like, yes, I'm going to vote for Trump over Biden. So that's no secret. He was someone who preferred DeSantis, but he was always going to vote for the nominee. But to have a fundraiser for somebody, that's beyond, I think, an endorsement. You know, you can vote for someone. There's different tiers of support. There's I'll cast the ballot. There's I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to endorse this person. And then it's like, I'm going to enthusiastically endorse this person, knock doors, and like you're really devoted to that person winning. And hosting fundraising for somebody, especially knowing that much of it is going for legal bills and stuff, is pretty incredible, I think. So and I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that the Biden administration is really sort of empowering Hamas, I guess you could say, with their kind of wish-washy policy. Kamala Harris, there's a video of her talking about I've seen the maps, and I think the RNC blazed on her a bit because I think there's another video of her talking about maps where she's just really silly. Like here's a
We have been clear in multiple conversations and in every way that any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. Let me tell you something. I have studied the maps. There's nowhere for those folks to go. And we're looking at about 1.5 million people in Rafah who are there because they were told to go there, most of them. And so we've been very clear that it would be a mistake to move into Rafah with any type of military operation.
A mistake, but would there be consequences if he does move forward?
Well, we're going to take it one step at a time, but we've been very clear in terms of our perspective on whether or not that should happen.
Are you ruling out that there would be consequences from the United States?
I am ruling out nothing. We have.
So RNC also like brought up this too.
If you're watching any level of news, even social media, you're seeing everything that's going on right now in the Ukraine. Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
If you're watching any
like a Dr. Seuss book. So I thought it was funny that they brought that up again. But yeah, so Israel wants to take out Hamas. They still have troops there in Rafah, and if they want them, just kind of leave them alone and leave them be. Like I understand their concern for what could happen. However, if they leave Hamas intact with still their numbers and whatnot, they're just promising that they will have another attack at some point, and they will see it as a win. They'll see it as a win, and I don't think it's good to empower terrorists with victory. It's just, you know, my opinion. Another thing that they're doing is they keep trying to make it seem as if Benjamin Netanyahu is the person who's calling the shots to be all pro angry pro war, pro murder of Palestinians and genocidal and all that stuff. But and you had Schumer, who was on who made a speech talking about how they need to have an election and stuff, and it was condemning them, and basically Israel's like, mind your business, like we will do what we need to do, but mind your business. But they have a unified war government, and whether it's Bibi or his rival, they're going to go ahead and try to eliminate Hamas after what happened on October the 7th. So the US not really coming off as a solid partner does a lot of damage for Israel. So I wonder how much of been like, you know what, I'm gonna do a fundraiser for Trump is centered around like the foreign policy stuff. I mean, the border issue is bad, and but that's one that hits, is pretty personal. So he did an episode entitled "This is why I'm giving money to I'm giving money to Donald Trump." In the border, let me play you guys some clips of Peter Ducey questioning. Did you guys see that clip of the National Guard in Texas? They had a barrier, and then all these men just came over, rushing them to get to the gate. And so Peter Ducey asks the press secretary about it. Of course, she was her normal self.
So on this border video, what does President Biden think should happen to adult men who are assaulting and overpowering U.S. National Guardsmen?
Well, let me just first say we're grateful, and I said this moments ago, to Border Patrol agents for their to quickly work and get the situation under control and apprehend the migrants. So I want to be really clear that everyone who was apprehended by Border Patrol. They were able to do their job, even though it's made it more. Even though Republican governor, in particular Governor Abbott, has made it difficult for them. We need more resources. We need more personnel. I mean, we have to have the backs of our law enforcement on the ground who are dealing with this every day. But Republicans are getting in the way. Republicans in Congress do not want to help. And you have a Governor Abbott, who's politicizing it. That is what's happening. Border Patrol agents did their job, even though the governor's getting in the way of them doing their job.
And this is crazy. This is crazy. And I think many people know that it's crazy. I mean, there's some people who buy their talking points or like, oh, it's Donald Trump. Oh, it's the Republicans. Oh, it's them standing in the way, whatever. But I think most people are kind of like, no, they could redo the Remain in Mexico and other things that Trump had in place that you just like overturned as soon as you got in. If you just kind of reverse some of those things, that would really help. But we need more people on the ground. They want more people on the ground to process people faster into the United States, not to protect our border and keep people from actually coming in. They just want to process people in faster. And they want to move people into the interior of the United States because they don't want to have the over flooding of the different facilities so people can take pictures and show everybody the kids in their cages or whatever, or people sleeping in their, like, I don't know, foil blankets, whatever they are. So let's keep watching.
But I get that you guys, you talk so much about having a more humane immigration system. This video does not show helpless women and children begging for a safe place to come in. It shows adult men landing haymakers on U.S. troops in uniform. If that was happening anywhere else in the world, wouldn't President Biden send reinforcements?
So two things. Everyone was apprehended by the Border Patrol agents. That is important to note. They were apprehended.
Were they deported?
What they were apprehended. I can't speak to individual cases. That's not something I can do from here. But they were all apprehended. That's number one. And the reason why you're talking about the Texas National Guard, they were there because of the governor of Texas. The governor of Texas put the Texas National Guard there. We didn't put them there. He put them there. What we need is actually real solutions. We need to see resources. The Border Patrol agents deserve resources. They deserve to be able to do their jobs. And we're not getting that from Republicans. They're rejecting a bipartisan agreement that came out of the Senate.
And last one, there is a Venezuelan migrant with 500,000 followers on TikTok who is telling border crossers they can live in empty houses in this country. Would President Biden support a law that would make that kind of squatting illegal?
I have not seen that TikTok video, so I can't comment on that.
Do you need to see a TikTok video to? I mean, she has to speak on behalf of the president, but like,
last one, there is a.
But do you need to see that to know that? You could at least say, well, I'll bring it up to the president or something. You know, because squatting laws are crazy. But yeah, there was a video on TikTok, and I don't know. I didn't see the original channel where it was from. I saw people like reposting it and whatever talking about it. So I don't know if he has that many followers or whatever. But yeah, they're saying like, yeah, you can just go squat to people's houses and just take the property. And people with really bold kind of squatting laws, yeah, I suppose that would make sense. Like in New York, last week we watched a video of a squatter who was in a woman's house, and the conflict ended with the homeowner being arrested because she changed the locks, and they're saying it was an unlawful eviction, and it was insane. So these people are coming over, as Ducey said. Then the video, these were grown men, not children, not babies, coming over, forcing their way into the United States. And she keeps saying that the National Guard was there because they put them there because they want to try to protect the border, because they know that the Biden administration is not doing a very good job of that. So to just be like, oh, Abbott is playing politics, but he's trying to protect the border. He's trying to. Again, they just want to process people into the United States, and that is not what should be happening. I mean, that bipartisan bill also was like giving money to groups that would go down there, and some would be like left-wing groups that would be to help them. It's funneling money into people who are just creating more problems. Like, we don't want them to come in. We want them stopped. Like, that's the thing. We just don't want to have them processed in and then have to be here for a couple of years and never probably show up for the court date. And then in some years have to debate about whether or not they should get asylum or not. Not asylum, get amnesty. I'm sorry. Get amnesty. So anyway, these sorts of conversations, these sort of policies make Joe Biden very unreasonable. And again, he hasn't showed, they just keep complaining. They keep pointing the finger. And in the words of Obama, like, never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to bleep things up. They're really messing stuff up here. If he showed even a little bit of not, there was another tweet I saw in that thread. Someone was like, I was going to give Biden till November, but I can't. Like to kind of make a decision on whether or not they were going to support him or not. So I think there's probably enough people out there who are changing their minds, who are upset about all this stuff. And the election is not going to be an indictment on Trump again. It's going to be an indictment on Biden. It's going to be an indictment on him. And if he was like, one, he promised he would be a placeholder. So he already was dishonest about that. Two, many of the things that people complain about Trump about, Biden is far worse on that. Or the negatives that could cut against Trump, they definitely cut against Biden. Like Trump is old, but so Biden is older. And Trump seems to be with it as opposed to Biden. You know, even if you watch The Apprentice, and Trump always talked about people who are older in a positive light just because how much energy or something they had. When Joan Rivers was on the show, he would always compliment her because she was old but could do a lot of stuff. So he's not an ageist in the least bit anyway, and he's up there in age, older obviously now than he was when he did that show. But as long as you still have the vigor and the mental faculties to do the job, that you think that's actually super impressive. But Joe Biden doesn't appear to be with it as much as Trump is obviously with it. Biden, like Trump, they're like, Trump is mean. Biden is mean. Biden is mean. Biden does the insults. He gets frustrated quickly. He can be disrespectful to different people, including people in the press, particularly Peter Doocy and other folks. Like, well, Trump, has this history with all this racism stuff. If you say so, but if we're going to compare, Joe Biden has got some whoppers, I tell you. Well, Trump, he has these issues with women. Biden had an issue with an accuser, and then they said, well, the proof is in one of his in his sealed records or something. And when he was asked by Mika on Morning Joe about, well, why don't you just release the records? This man literally said that that stuff would be cannon fodder in a campaign. So he told you the reason why he can't just open up these documents and these speeches or whatever kind of stuff, because it would make him look bad. There's stuff that people could use against him in a presidential election. That went on in 2020. And I watched that interview and I'm like, are we just going to speed past that and not talk about that at all? Like, I talked about it, but I'm like, how is everyone missing what just happened? Doesn't it make you more curious? Tara Reid was her name. Tara Reid. And by the way, there was information, there was like more corroboration, for her story than there was for, like, I don't know, Kavanaugh or something like that. Because there was I think an old video of someone calling into a TV show of her mom talking about her daughter had an issue with a senator or something. So anyway, there's issues there for both of them. But again, at least people were paying less in gas under Trump. At least people were doing better off financially. Cadance Owens goes around, asks people, like, were you doing better the last, were you better off 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever? And if people are like, yeah, she's like, okay, remember that at the ballot box. Now, some people, there's got to be people out there who are doing better today, but you got to also look at the fact, you might be doing better today because maybe you were a kid back then and now you got a job or something, or you got more education, you got a better job or something like that. But there's different circumstances that might explain why you're doing better today or not doing better. But the state of the world is not better under Joe Biden. Even with, like, the rate of inflation going down, it's still high. Groceries and other things are still high. Gas is still getting higher. And we don't have security. We don't feel secure. We don't feel safe. And he's not going to make it better. Now, I have full confidence that Trump can, like, permanently improve the border. Not full confidence, no, to be frank. Because some people have asked me, like, do you really think Trump's going to make a difference? I'm like, I think he can stop the flow of people coming in to the extent that they are, if he just kind of redoes some of the things that he did before. He's still going to face a lot of opposition. He may have slimmer margins for the House than he originally had coming in, or, what he had to work with in the Senate. He had, I can't remember at what point they became divided. Did he have full control coming in, and then by the midterm they lost seats and stuff? But I can't quite recall. I don't know how the House and the Senate are going to work with him and what he's going to actually be able to pass. He did a lot of stuff via executive order, and Joe Biden undid that stuff. they're going to have to make some real good policy decisions that he can sign. And so I don't know what all is going to happen, but I do know that we can't keep going in this particular trajectory. So I hope he has some smart people coming in that can help him achieve some good policy wins. But Biden, we just can't do this anymore. We just can't. We just can't. I think I'm gonna have to table the Rana stuff until maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. The Ronna McDaniel stuff. But long story short, NBC or just NBC is just upset. Different on-air talent is mad because she's going to MSNBC. So again, we'll have to table that right now. But I want to show you guys this Cadance Owens part of this interview from the Breakfast Club. My sister had sent it to me Friday, but I didn't have time to watch it before we went live. And there's been a lot of buzz about her leaving, the Daily Wire. And I guess we don't know. She just described it as "I'm free." They've definitely had beef for a minute. I guess I'm assuming you don't know if, I'm assuming it wasn't just like, hey, let's part ways. I don't know what kind of arrangements they made with the contract. I don't know if her contract was up. I don't know if they were just like, girl, we've had all we can take and you're fired. They haven't really explained that in full length. And I don't know if they will. Maybe they will, because if things get a little too heated, maybe Jeremy Boring will just get out in front of it. Like what happened with the Crowder situation with his contract, which, by the way, I did do a full kind of breakdown of the Crowder video too, like their beef with Daily Wire. So you guys can go check that out. But I did a full video about the Cadance Owens drama with Ben Shapiro and their beef, and it went all the way up until when she had maternity leave. And so there's been drama and conflict since then. Some more things that people could kind of be like, ooh, that seems like it might be anti-Jew. One thing in particular, someone had a tweet about someone drinking the blood of Jews, drinking the blood of Christians, and she liked the tweet. So people were not okay with that. There was a monologue about Jewish gangs and other stuff like that. So people have raised their brows at a couple things, but I would assume also her video about the First Lady of France allegedly being a man that she said she would stake her whole career on is probably a factor as well. I don't think that is on the Daily Wire. I don't know if it's not on like the website, but I don't think it's on YouTube anymore. And I don't know, it could have even been some of the Diddy stuff as well. I don't know, but some people who are defending her, or even Cadance herself, like it all seems like people are kind of speculating that it's just, the framing is, oh, they're really against free speech because when you start talking about the Jews, they have to let you go. And I'm like, or Cadance is against genocide, so they had to let her go. Cadance is against funding war, so they really had to let her go. And that's not really what happened at all. It's really not what happened. It's more complicated than that. Again, I have a video. It's a little over an hour that details the Cadance Owens Ben conflict or whatever. So I encourage you guys to go check that out. And I've seen like an uptick in the views with that, people watching that. But I think that context is important because they are trying to frame it dishonestly. Before I show you guys this clip from the Breakfast Club, though, while I was talking to you guys, or we're live, I saw this tweet from Cadance that I want to share. And so Christ is King, sometimes when you're on Twitter, you probably see that trend a bit. And people have been saying that Christ is King, that phrase is anti-Semitic. And of course, it's not, well, I'm a Christian, it's just the truth. As far as as I'm concerned. But it became I'm not aware of people being like, oh, Christ is King is so anti-Semitic, like this being conversation, at least especially not in the Twitter sphere, until Candace Owens went on the warpath with Ben and his tweets and stuff. So for some background, Candace Owens, when Ben Shapiro, when it came out that there was a video of him saying that everyone can see what she's doing and it's despicable, and he said she has a faux sophistication regarding like, you know, the matters of like Israel and Gaza, etc., which I don't disagree with his assessment on her I don't disagree with his assessment about her assessment. And I lay that out in that video, the long video I did. But she had tweeted out some scripture verses, some verses of the Bible. And there was there was Matthew 5:9-11. And that was like, blessed are the peacemakers. You know, blessed are those who are persecuted for my name's sake, which I'm like, you're not being persecuted for his name's sake, you know? So that kind of seemed like a passive aggressive kind of thing. And then there was another tweet. So it jumps up to the next chapter, and the next chapter is Mark 6. I don't remember exactly what verse it is, but it's you can't serve two masters. You can't serve God and money. So Ben replied to the you can't serve God and money, and he said, if you don't like taking our money, you can just quit. So that's the context there with the tweets, and then she ended up coming back at Ben and saying like, how dare you take these holy scriptures? This is the Bible's, like, it's not about you or something. And she ended up tweeting Christ is King. So then all these people who are like anti-Ben, anti-Israel, you know, anyway, started framing everything as though Ben was angry because she tweeted Christ is King. That was the narrative. So people started tweeting Christ is King to be anti-Ben or be anti-Jew or whatever. And if that is people's intention, that's pretty gross. You know, and again, to me, it's like, it's just a fact. It is what it is. But I just wanted to give some background on that. So Candace tweeted out, the reason why some people believe that with enough insistence they can convince American Christians that the basic truth, Christ is King, is actually anti-Semitic, is because they have been successfully spiking the ball on Christianity for the past 60 years, inch by inch, by pretending to be our friends and making us fearful of having the media project us as overzealous, is how they have scored so many wins. It's how mocking Christ has become commonplace in Hollywood. The reality is that they accuse us of what they are guilty of. They hold contempt for Christianity. The reality is that Christ's consciousness is rising throughout the world, and any person who is attempting to use methods of psychology to make people pause before they profess their faith is not on the side of goodness. So I don't, not that she's wrong about some of this stuff. She hasn't been a Christian for long herself. When she was on Joe Rogan, when she was at Turning Point USA, he was like mocking Charlie Kirk for believing in God, and she didn't stand up for Charlie Kirk. When she had Andrew Tate on her program talking about why he was leaving Christianity and becoming a Muslim, all she said is, I think it's sad that you're basically not on our team anymore. But Andrew Tate's thing was like, well, Christianity doesn't stand up for God enough. But what he means by that, because there's apologists all over the place. You're gonna tell me that Inspiring Philosophy or David Wood or Frank Turek or my dad or me, that we don't stand up for Christianity? Like, that's what these apologists are doing. But what Andrew Tate means by that is violence. And there's different clips David Wood did a pretty deep dive on Andrew Tate. He means violence. He means that people are scared, not of Christians, but they'll be scared to disrespect Muslims. So that he means violence, because people stand up for Christianity all the time, every day. Like Cliff and his son, they go college campuses to talk to people about Christianity. They stand up for the gospel every day. So these people exist. So this idea that Christians are just laying down and taking it isn't accurate. Maybe enough aren't standing up and preaching the gospel. But you can't stop people from mocking you or trying to persecute you, because it happened to Jesus. And Jesus said that it would happen to us too. So this, like, oh, Hollywood is doing this, we could be upset by it and choose to not support Hollywood or do whatever we want to do, going forward. But that stuff is going to happen regardless of whether you stand up for the gospel or not. The more you do it, the more likely people are to mock Christianity, I think, because I mean, when the devil's irritated, he act up, he act a fool. That's what happens. So Candace here having this tweet here, this thread about the crisis king situation, and not explaining where the drama kind of erupted from is, I just hate it. I just really hate it. Because people were using crisis king to get under Ben Shapiro's skin, to try to get under his skin. And Ben is a Jewish man. He does not see Christ the way that I see Christ. And excuse me, there's a clip of Ben on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about Jesus, and he just basically thought he was a Jew who got, more than he bargained for, and how he described, Jesus. It hurt my heart. It hurt my heart. Just like, just like, oh, like he doesn't know. Like I wish he knew him like I know him. And but I've seen people share that kind of like, aha, the Jews, I even heard I was on a live or listening to a live briefly last week, and the topic was, we don't support Israel, we support Candace. And there was a Muslim guy who I'm mutuals with, but he was on there, talking about how, Christians should be, shouldn't be having this so much support for Israel. And basically they have a supremacist mentality, and kind of making the case that, the Muslims and the Christians are on the same side or whatever. And we really respect Jesus, which I don't really agree with that. Like I know from their perspective they do, because they see him as a prophet. They don't think he's God, but they do think he's Messiah. They do think he's a prophet, and they do think that he's actually coming back again. But they think he's coming back again to tell everybody that the Christians, everybody, they got it wrong. So I would say that not just the whole not acknowledging the divinity of Christ is the reason why I don't really feel it's very respectful, but because they don't believe that Jesus claimed to be God. They don't believe that he was crucified, and they don't believe that he rose again. So to me, him being crucified is like a pretty grounded historical fact. And I don't know how you can read the Bible and come to the conclusion he didn't claim to be God. And that's something that's also like a historical sort of acceptance as well. And there's pretty good reason, the most debatable thing, I guess we'll say, is him rising from the dead, but that is something that, his followers professed. So to me, thinking that taking the word of someone who came 500 years plus later and saying, nah, this stuff didn't happen. Nah, he didn't say what he said that he said. I'm like how would you feel if let's say I wrote a book far into the future after my dad passes away. I'm saying far into the future because hopefully he has many more years to go. And I decide, I'm going to write a book about my dad, and I'm going to start, telling my story about him. And then there's other people who want to get on in the action. Maybe somebody he doesn't really know him, but he's collecting like eyewitness accounts, and it becomes kind of like this multiple book anthology about my dad or something. And then years in the future, 500 years in the future, some guy's like, you know what? I like this guy, Keith, but he never claimed that his name was Gino. He never liked comic books or something. Like just starts saying these things that are like rooted in historical truth aren't real. So that's why I'm just kind of like, I don't think it's weird to me when the Muslims are trying to get the Christians to turn from the Jews, because they're like, we're like the same. I'm like, basically everything that I believe that makes me a Christian, you think is wrong. We're just, so anyway. Anyway, people are trying to weaponize the crisis king thing, and that's just how it kind of played out in real time. So Candace ignoring that context is kind of wild to me. But anyway, let me show you this clip from the Breakfast Club with Cadance Owens, and she does talk about the tweets, and she also talks about Brian Mast as well.
Love the way that you and Ben Shapiro are able to disagree, but then I guess still have a business relationship, because I saw him recently tell you, I think this was maybe a few months ago, he told you to quit over your Palestine-Israel coverage.
Well, he told me, the tweet that he responded to was actually just some biblical passages.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought that it was me saying that I had to choose money over the, I don't know how we interpret it, but it was definitely not, I just meant it as like, peace, calling for peace, because, there was a video circulating of him calling me a disgrace and a faux professional or whatever it was. And I decided to choose peace. And then when I chose peace, he responded to the peace with not peace.
So why wouldn't he just fire you?
Well, as I explained on Tucker Carlson's show, like, Ben doesn't have the power to fire me.
So this was interesting because this was like the day before they announced that they were severing ties with her. So I don't know if Ben called up Jeremy's like, I want to go on. I don't know how exactly it happened, but someone asked, did we mention Yeezy? I haven't mentioned him this episode, but I definitely mentioned the Kanye stuff in the long video that I did covering the Ben and Candace situation. But again, how she's explaining how the tweets came about and what Ben responded to, her acting like she was just innocently posting some scriptures. I don't really buy it, because I don't understand why would you post the scriptures from Matthew 5 and then jump into the ones from Matthew 6 about you can't serve God and money. Like what does that have to do with being a peacemaker? What does that have to do with being a peacemaker? So I think they were meant to be passive aggressive, and you can definitely understand how Ben took that. And then she's like, oh, I just went the high ground route. Like, you already had a pre-recorded video of you and Tucker that dropped that night, like a few hours later. So you didn't exactly just choose to kind of let it go. You decided how you were going to play things out. And Ben had a more emotional kind of public outburst, and hers was more calculated. But that doesn't mean that she was just like an innocent kind of like, oh, I didn't want to choose violence. Yeah, he had a hammer, and she had a like a kunai, like a ninja kunai. Like she decided to attack in a more stealthy sort of way. So yeah, how she's explaining these tweets just is not accurate. But let's move on.
It's not even saying that we disagree on Israel and Palestine. I just think that he's obviously, his wife is Israeli.
Mm-hmm.
He spends a lot of time in Israel throughout the year. I think when you have an emotional attachment to some place, that sometimes your reaction to anything is going to be more extreme to it. I have some relatives that are from St. Thomas. If what was happening in that region was happening in St. Thomas, I would probably be the most fired up out of everybody at the Daily Wire. And yeah, he definitely went through, I think, an emotional time at the end of last year, you know, dealing with everything. I think I was pretty even keel. I don't want to see innocent Palestinians killed. I don't want to see innocent Israelis killed. I never want to see children killed. I don't believe children should have to grow up in a war zone based on the actions of a few. And that, I guess, last year sounded crazy. It sounded crazy because always the demand in all these situations is to make people pick a side.
So I think the energy that she gave, she had with Ami Kozak, which she wasn't like aggressive or anything like that. Not when she's like really up against like a person who she really wants to like take down or whatever. But she had more kind of questions and pushback for him, and he's a comedian, and he's like for the pro-Israel kind of side, versus like Norman Finkelstein coming on, and she just kind of let him have the floor and didn't ask him about the things that he wrote on Substack or in kind of support of, like, he talked about his heart being filled with glee over October the 7th. And like he was saying things like, I don't think the rape stuff has really happened or whatever, and denying things. I'm like, you're not going to push back against that at all, Candace. So but she would fight Ami for a while and push back about the Muslim quarters being like the Jim Crow South. So I don't think she's really had an even kind of keel. She'll do this thing like, I'm just asking questions. But she's very good at what Rush Limbaugh would call media tweaking, tweaking people, getting particular reactions with folks, and she's crafty. She's crafty, but no, I don't think she was even killed. But she's talking about there was one tweet she had tweeted about like genocide, like no country should commit genocide or whatever, which people assume she was talking about Israel. And her and Dave Rubin went back and forth a little bit, and he was like, thank you for condemning Hamas. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, why, it's funny that you're saying this stuff and I didn't say anything, you know, and you're trying to make me condemn or whatever. And he's like, I'm not trying to make you condemn. I'm assuming you are, and I'm thanking you for doing so. And so she's was annoyed how people tried to, I don't know, use her platform, or I don't know, etc. She just made it a whole big drama, and eventually told Norman Finkelstein that her tweet was about Brian Mast. And she was like, oh, it wasn't that far from her tweet about him originally, but her tweet with Brian Mast was 2 days before that, and they weren't even in the same thread. So let's say this is in the height of like Kyle Rittenhouse and him, like his judgment or whatever, and them saying, you know, you're innocent or whatever. And let's say Cadance Owens had tweeted out, nobody should be, no murderers should get off when they clearly committed murder or something. And if people replied, Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. Kyle was clearly found, you know, to be not guilty, and we had all this evidence, etc., and make a case. And if she responded with, I didn't say who I was talking about, like, that's the kind of energy she gave with the genocide whole thing situation. But let's keep listening.
And then if you don't pick their side, then you get smeared and you get libeled, right? So if you don't say, I want every Palestinian murdered, then suddenly you're pro-Hamas. If you don't say, like, I want every Israeli person eradicated, you know, then suddenly you're pro-apartheid, whatever the arguments are. And I think both of that is extreme.
You said no government anywhere has a right to commit a genocide, ever. There's no justification for genocide.
Yeah. That is going to age so well. Genocide is always wrong. It is, guys. It is always wrong. And doesn't matter at any point in human history, any person that is advocating for genocide is always in the wrong. And when I wrote that tweet, I was referring to Brian Mast, who was a congressman. He got up and he literally said in Congress that there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian. And I was like, that is genocidal. right? As soon as you say an entire group of people are all evil, you are now laying the groundwork to justify a genocide. And that to me was wild. So I spoke up against it.
Okay, so Brian Mass quite literally did not say what she claimed that he said. And this is something else that I covered in my video with Cadance Owens and the whole Ben Shapiro saga, with talking about the context of the Brian Mast situation. So Brian Mast was debating a bill that was going to limit the sort of aid that they could send to Gaza. And the sort of aid that they wanted to limit was aid that could be used for a dual purpose and converted to terrorism, like using some kind of farm equipment to like break down the barriers or something of the borders or whatever. So it's not them saying you can't send food or medical supplies or things like that. They just wanted to make sure that in the bill they weren't going to improve like some kind of like aid again that could be used as dual use stuff. And so Brian Mast, and by the way, Cadance Owens only she retweeted or this small clip of him, and when she played it on her show, like when she was talking to Ami, she still only played that little clip and didn't give her audience the full context of what they were talking about. So when he was saying he said we have to be careful about when we throw around like phrases like innocent Palestinians and so on. And the point was, well, I guess he didn't want an intuition sort of pump, I guess is maybe the concept. But his argument was that these people are indoctrinated into doing some bad stuff. So if you have the idea like, oh, everybody's just kind of innocent, not going to do stuff, they are indoctrinated and people will take stuff. And then maybe one day, he said October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum. There's all these sorts of things that led up to it. So he didn't want this stuff getting in the hands of people who could potentially harm other folks. And that's basically the gist of it. And he did not say that there was literally no innocent Palestinians. Technically, I think he said that there are some or something like that. But and people can still, when I first heard that, I'm like, it still doesn't sound great. And I had wrote an article about some of this stuff with Cadance, and I mentioned what Brian Mast said, and someone wrote back to me and was like, you know what, it's not, what he said really wasn't inappropriate. And this was someone who's a veteran, and they said in the Middle East they would use kids to try to kill us. So you do have to be careful about this mentality of, I guess, what the civilians may or may not do. So his intention wasn't like, screw them kids, bomb them, they're all guilty. That wasn't his intention of the entire discussion. And to me, that's kind of what Cadance Owens was painting, is she never gave her audience the context. And so she's still going around repeating this stuff. And to the Breakfast Club, who has a huge audience, so now they're just like, Brian Mast, genocidal American who wants kids to die, who doesn't see them as, innocent and or whatever. So I didn't appreciate that she's still kind of pushing that narrative forward. So I just wanted to talk about it. But last thing I want to say about this attitude of the crisis king and trying to make, I don't know, the Jews feel bad or whatever. Like, you can't be afraid to proclaim that Jesus is Lord and, that he's our savior and so on. But Apostle Paul had the mentality that he would be willing to give up his salvation, his own salvation, if it could save his brethren. And people need to bring that sort of energy to people who are lost in their sin. And maybe that's making some people wince, like, you're saying I'm lost in sin. Yep. and you have different views or whatever on life and religion, you know, you have your beliefs. I'm not straying or apologizing for mine, but I'm talking to the fellow Christians out there. Um, you should be grieved. When I heard Ben Shapiro say the stuff about Jesus on Joe Rogan, my heart was grieved. I didn't go, oh, those darn Jews. My heart was grieved. And this, I don't know, negativity that people have, like people going around like, oh, they killed Jesus. Christ laid down his life to save everyone. So the least you could do is have some compassion and pray and remember, you know, God forgive them because they know not what they do. So anyway, I thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost to stream and run my website, all that good stuff, so you guys can support. Thank you very much. By the way, I did accept the offer from CNN to participate in their article. I'm not, and it is an article. I'm not being like interviewed face to face or something. I think maybe that was like the main concern for some of my followers, like, don't do it. But I still don't know how the article will turn out. They still got to write it. But they sent me some questions, and they're like clarifying questions about the article that I wrote 3 years ago about the skin color of Jesus. So hopefully it'll all be, you know, fair and even killed or whatever. But the good news is that one way or another, they're going to link back to my article. So hopefully it, you know, brings on new people to I don't know, to Black T News. So I assume that that'll be out by, I don't know, maybe this week, but by the end of this week, or because it's supposed to be for Easter. So they want the questions back tonight or tomorrow, I think early by tomorrow. So I'm going to work on that today. So anyway, just want to let you guys know. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow.